and welcome to this video where I get the chance to talk to my good friend and mentor Liz Nagle. Now, I felt so inspired this morning. I woke up inspired to want to talk to her and to want to record it, because our conversations can get really quite juicy sometimes, and so I really wanted to record it this time. And what's really inspired it is an event that Liz held at her house recently called Satsang, and it was a very, very powerful combination of wisdom, you know, wise words and loving, compassionate company, and a lot of people ready and open and willing to expand into more of who they are. And so I personally experienced a massive shift at that time, as did my good friend and mentor Liz Nagle. So we wanted to talk about that anyway, you know, the shifts that we've experienced. We always talk about our shifts and how we're evolving and moving into, you know, new ways of living and giving, etc. So I thought this time we would have the conversation on camera. And then it made me think, there's loads of questions that I want to ask the lovely Liz. So she was gracious enough to accept and say, okay, game for a laugh. So here she is, my lovely friend Liz Nagle, and I'm going to ask her questions. Okay, anything you want to say or share, Liz, before I start?
Well, I would just like to say that Deborah is my good friend and mentor also. So it's a mutual mentorship here. Thank you.
Okay, I've accepted that. I nearly said there was a part of me, and I think people might recognize this. There was a part of me that thought, well, we both know that's a big lie. That, you know, seriously, there was a part of me that felt like that. That is the sort of thing I would have said. And so the greater part of me, my higher self, shall we say, just took that on graciously and lovingly and accepted it. But that is a very good example of how there is a part of us that is not willing to always receive. That's a good point as well. But anyway, so I'm going to dive in. Okay, is that all right? And I would like to start actually back in your childhood, back in Ireland, back in Dublin, if that's okay, because we only met like a few years ago. So there's a lot obviously about you that I don't know. So my first question, I'm so excited. My first question is, did you have, and I am going to read them, did you have any memorable spiritual experiences kind of beyond the veil, or some kind of understanding of something non-physical when you were growing up?
I think I probably had many, but there's kind of one in particular. My dad died very suddenly when I was 9, and I think it was a couple of months later, I was out in the garage behind the house, which used to be his workshop, and he had a bench and, you know, a wooden bench with all the tools and everything on it. And I kind of, I don't know if I'd been in the meantime, but when I walked in this day, I suddenly felt his presence, you know, and I felt this kind of great sadness come over me. And I was 9 or going on 10, I guess, but I didn't really understand that he wasn't coming back, you know. I didn't really understand the finality of death. And I think when I walked into the garage that day, I suddenly understood that he wasn't coming back, and I felt this great sadness come over me. And I put my hand on one of the tools on the bench, on the workbench, and suddenly my finger, the middle finger of my right hand just went numb. Just the moment I touched it, it just went completely and utterly numb. And I jumped with fright, actually. What's that? I jumped with fright. And I mean, it turned out afterwards that I had wrapped an elastic band around my finger, and that's why it had gone numb. I'd stopped the blood. You know, as kids do, you do these things. It was probably a ponytail or something. But the fact that the fact that it went numb as soon as I touched the tool that he had always used, it wasn't the physical thing that my finger went numb and oh my God, it was magic. It was to me, it was just the energy of the situation, and you know, that's how I understood it. It was at that moment of realizing he wasn't coming back, and yet something about him was still there, you know, that he was able to touch me like that in that moment.
I love that. I hadn't heard that before, and I have to pick up on this word realized, because we know that this is about self-realization. We know that evolution and ascension and growth and all these things are different words for the same thing, and it is about self-realization. And when we realize something, you know, we use the word to mean that you noticed it, but also it means to create something, to create it into, to bring it into real, to make it real. So or to bring it into the cells of your body. It's quite interesting. So the situation with the finger, see, what I'm picking up from that is sometimes we have to have a physical experience that precedes the non-physical realization. Does that make sense? There does seem to be, I'm also relating this back to Tuesday's experience that we both had, but some physical experience that precedes a realization. And it's that realization, you said you realized that your dad wasn't coming back, but you are the creator of your own reality. So what you're actually doing is you're having a realization, but perhaps at the same time, you're making it real to yourself that he's physically, can we say he was physically not coming back? Because he was quite clearly still there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. I just like to explore these words and how we use them, because I think we have these phrases and we kind of repeat them. I know I have. I've been using phrases like self-realization and stuff, but it's that, and you mentioned this on Tuesday, it's that when you actually integrate that understanding and that realization into the cells of your body, that it literally shifts you into a higher level of consciousness, doesn't it?
It really quite literally shifts you. Yeah.
I know, it's really, yeah, and it's difficult to explain. It's difficult to put it into words.
Yeah.
That came up in the readings yesterday, in the video yesterday, that we can't put words on it sometimes.
No, we can't even logically understand it in our minds. It's like, I understand it in my heart or my soul, and because you can tap into that energy, then I can express it to you, but maybe not to many other people. You know, not everybody would get it.
Yeah, and that's why some people will resonate towards certain things and others, of course. And hopefully anyone that does resonate towards this video and chooses to listen to it, it will be because they're, you know, they've got something to, you know, to hear for them personally, maybe. Okay, so another question, back to your growing up in Dublin. Did you feel particularly different from the people around you at school or in your street or even in your family? Because I know you have a very big family.
Always felt apart, always felt different. Yes, I have a large family. I mean, in Irish terms, it's not that big. It was like 7 children. But the first 2 were born very close together, like a little over a year, very little over a year and 2 months or something. The next 2 were born again, like a little over a year later, but they were twins. So that was 4, you know, they were kind of grouped together. And then the next twins were born 5 years later, no, 4 years later, I think. And 5 years later, it was me on my own. So the others were all paired off, and there was me. So I always felt kind of where was the other bit? Well, you know, I always felt, yeah, different and separate. Yeah, in school, yeah, I guess coming from there, it went on from there, you know. I always felt a little bit separate and different, but I think maybe everybody does, no? It's like, you know, I think everybody does.
Well, I think anybody watching this video will relate to it, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, whether we used to call ourselves the black sheep of the family, maybe, or but I think now perhaps we're realizing it's the more sensitive people, or perhaps we could use the word starseed or something like that. You know, as to why people felt yeah, misunderstood, maybe. Did that ever? I always felt very misunderstood growing up.
So I felt I couldn't express myself, and so I was always misunderstood. When I tried to express myself about something that I really felt strongly about, I would burst into tears, and I would just be dismissed as being, you know, over emotional or silly little Liz, or, you know, yeah, I found it really hard. But then that's my Chiron is in my North Node, which is, and I'm Gemini also. So I have this Chiron stopping my communication with words. I'm here. It's improved because I'm working towards it. But yeah, that's.
Oh, I'm not sure I knew that. So can you tell me the qualities of Chiron then?
Well, it's the wounded healer, basically. It's your wound that you are working towards healing in this lifetime.
Like 9 of Wands.
So,
a bit of a 9 of Wands. Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Because yes, as a Gemini, you know, they are the talkers and the expressors of their inspiration and stuff, aren't they?
Yes, but I had this wound there, so it was blocking me. It's, yeah, I mean, I've gone a long way to healing it, but I think I had to learn how to express myself in other ways, not in words.
Your artwork, one of which is right behind you, which is gorgeous. I love it. That's definitely one of your most beautiful divine channels of self-expression.
Yes, it's certainly one, but I think it was more learning to connect through the heart rather than through the mind and with words. That's what I had to learn. It wasn't that I wasn't able to speak. You know, I've always been articulate, but it was all in the head and very little connected to the heart. So that's what I had to learn, is how to actually speak from my heart, and not from my head. Because when I spoke from my head, I was mostly talking bullshit, really. You know? Mostly rubbish, mostly stuff I had, you know, all my opinions on things, very opinionated, and that's all ego rubbish, really. Yeah.
But also very fourth dimensional, the fourth dimensional mind, as opposed to what I call like the fifth dimensional mind, or the mind that we use to put into practice our divine inspiration. But we have the lower mind, which is that fourth dimensional, the one that's easily programmed.
Yeah, but it's also the practical one. And when we try to express anything a little bit more metaphysical, then it it gets corrupted, really.
Yeah, and as you said, ego. I mean, that it's very egoic, the lower part of our mental energy body. Okay. So the next question is, when and how did you first realize that Liz Nagle, and I was going to say was just, and then I thought, no, that's got a negative connotation. So was merely, maybe that's a better word, I'm not sure, was merely your human vessel for this lifetime. So when and how did you first realize that Liz Nagle was merely your human vessel for this lifetime? Although it may not have been a one incident, like, you know.
I don't know exactly how to answer that. Let me think. I think it's more of a realization that has come in and left and come back and left and come in again. I think probably the biggest realization that I am not my body. Happened when I was on retreat in Thailand, the Vipassana retreat, and my body simply disappeared. In a meditation, it just disappeared. It's like I just dissolved, and suddenly I was part of the all. I was part of everything. I understood everything. You know, I could see the other side of the universe, the other side of the world. I could understand everything. I was part of everything. And I don't know, you know, how many seconds that lasted for, but it felt like ages. And it was quite exciting and shocking at the same time. It was like standing on a, you know, on a glass floor, looking down from a skyscraper. You know, it's like, holy moly, you know, there's nothing beneath me. There's nothing. I can't, you know, there's nothing and everything.
Yeah.
And it was kind of terrifying in an exhilarating sort of way. Yeah. Of course, when I came back, I didn't know anything anymore.
Yeah, well, that's when I asked the question. I suddenly thought, well, I think this is you know, we get glimpses of it, don't we? It's like, you know, there's the odd glimpse here and there, and then that glimpse gets maybe just a little bit prolonged, or it feels like it's a little bit prolonged each time. I don't know, but I think what you described is what in yoga we would call samadhi, which is that, you know, that complete and utter oneness. And I mean, I've just had glimpses of it. The most recent one was probably the longest one, when I was, I think I told you about it, when I just found myself, I wasn't planning anything. I wasn't even consciously meditating. I was just doing some yoga poses on the beach, and found that my breath was in sync with the waves of the sea. And I just kind of realized that, and it gave me that sense of oneness that you're talking about, and that took me somewhere. But it's just so fleeting. Well, for me, it was just so fleeting. So yeah, I can relate to that. So okay. So there is no, I think it's quite, because I mean, anyone watching this is going to be, you know, well and truly on their path, and so they probably also have experiences. So it would be good to hear from anyone as to what when they realized that they were more than their human. So it's yeah, good one. Okay, anything else before I go on to the next question?
No, I don't think so.
Just checking. I'm kind of like in interviewer mode. It's new for me to be in interviewer mode, but like I said, I'm not sure whether this is an interview or just a chat with my friend Liz. I'm not sure, so I'm just sort of
More like an interview.
because I've got these questions and they're written down, so it is a bit, isn't it? But feel free to go off on tangents. Okay, one of the things that was quite well, for me, it didn't seem unusual, but one of the things that we both understood on Tuesday was that basically you had been told to do this, to follow this satsang and to set it up the way you did. There were guidelines where, you know, you asked us not to eat beforehand, and to obviously to be quiet and to treat the space like a sacred space that it is. But you were told to do all of that. That was coming through you rather than from you. And it's this being told what to do. I know that doesn't sound so great because we're actually, I think it was my last video that was about moving away from being told what to do. But when we're being told by our own higher self, then we want to do as we're told, really, because our higher self obviously knows the best things for us. And so I really understood what you meant, and I don't think I've ever worded it like that before, whereby, you know, oh, I'm doing as I'm told. But obviously that's all part and parcel of intuition, isn't it? Following your intuition, following your spiritual guidance, and all of that. So, and I think there's I think there's a process of nurturing that. And I think it's very relevant because, as I say, it came up in my last video about heightening your intuition, nurturing that inner voice, higher voice, I want to call it, or whatever. So that you actually said, oh, I'm just doing as I'm told. It's like literally, that makes things easier for you, doesn't it? I mean, it makes things really easy rather than, you know, maybe earlier on in the journey, you might think, you know, oh, I don't know whether to do this or this. And you're in two minds about it, and you've got maybe the ego suggesting this, and then you're the fool card, you know, telling you to take this leap, and, you know, all of this kind of dilemma. And, you know, whereas the more you nurture that, or allow it, maybe is a better word, this is what I want to, it's all, there's a question in here, so somewhere, then the clearer that telling you what to do is. So the question is, Liz, how did you and how do you nurture that inner voice, higher voice, whatever you want to call it? Because you were so adamant that you'd been told what to do, you followed the instructions, and it was a tremendous success. So how did you get to that stage of being able to be told what to do like that?
I had never used that phrase before either. It just,
okay.
that's exactly what it felt like. There's, you've been told what to do, just freaking do it, you know, stop messing about thinking you know better. So like we'd had the practice run the week before where I hadn't followed through. I followed through a little bit, but I held back, and, you know, yeah, I didn't want to come across as too pretentious, and didn't want to be bossy, and didn't want to say, no, we're not doing it that way, we're doing it this way.
But that's all ego, right?
That's all my fear. It's all fear about what people think, and how, you know, and how will I appear, and, you know. So I was given the opportunity to give it a second run on this Tuesday, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it exactly as I'm told this time, exactly as I'll just follow my instincts. I mean, how did I get there? Is because I made a mess sort of the previous week, and I've made hundreds of messes up to this point, of not following my instincts, or following my instincts to a point and then holding back, you know. afraid of appearing to be setting myself up as something that I, you know, actually cannot live up to. You know, I'm not a master, but it occurred to me that I'm auditioning to be a master. I'm playing at being a master, you know, so that someday I may be. It's audition. It's an audition, and so I'm doing my best to play that part. There is only me, so I'm just acting it for me. I'm just in front of a mirror, pretending to be a master. And, you know, you all that were here were my witnesses or my audience for, you know, helping me to hone my craft, or, you know, to practice it, to practice and rehearse.
I'm tempted to say, because I think we are already all masters. I think we are all masters. So you're saying to practice it, whereas I want to say to realize your mastery, or to realize that you are that master. Because by the end of it, you were the master. And so, you know, but you realized it. We're back to that, aren't we?
Of course, but, you know, from on a human level, I don't get to be the master every, you know, minute of my day, of every minute of my life, because so many blocks and walls and programs stopping me from being myself, from being that master. And you know, I think pretty much most of us here on this planet are.
I think that we are the master, but as you say, there are the parts of us getting in the way.
Yes, of course we are the master.
We're always getting in our own way, aren't we? Mm-hmm.
But we're always getting in our own way, and that's part of the adventure and school of life, you know, is to work through those things. So I'm at the stage now where I've learned the script, so now I have to actually get out and audition for the part so that I can, you know, get into it.
And you did say something, I'm going off on a tangent now, but you did say something there which I have to pick you up on, which was there is only me. And we have a little giggle, don't we, about that, because you know, I think it was definitely a full 2 years that you were telling me that, and I say it all the time in my videos. I get it now. I mean, it is actually one of the most liberating realizations to integrate into the cells of your body. And also this idea that there is only you, because now we're looking at life from the quantum physics perspective, when we say there is only you and everything outside of you is a reflection of a part of you. What I found so liberating about that is what stops you caring what other people think. When you can really grasp that concept, and you know that you're coming from the heart, you know that your actions are heart-based, you know that the actions you're taking are following on from inspiration that you've received, whether through your intuition or what have you. So you're confident in your integrity. Then, as you said, you're worried what other people think. How will I come across? And it was the same with me doing my videos. Because it was like, there was no way I'm doing a video. There's no way I'm going to put a video on YouTube. What are you talking about? You know, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? I just take one look at myself and I would say, look, she's all wonky and her eyes shut and her this. And now, you know, my thumbnails are like, you know, and I don't care, because obviously I understand now there is only me. But it's not about that. It's about, you know, if you don't criticize yourself, you know, if you think that you're coming across as pretentious, then there is a cell in your body that believes that you are pretentious. One cell out of 50 trillion. You know, obviously, if you had more than that, you really would be pretentious. Maybe, I don't know, but you know, one cell. We have these 1, 2, 3 cells, don't we? That gives us that doubt. But if you understand that there is only you, then, and you don't criticize yourself, then nobody outside of you can criticize you, because it's not a vibrational match. And when I realized that, that's when I started posting videos on YouTube and not worrying what people think. And that doesn't mean that, you know, our human is still going to be hurt under criticism. It's just that is a human nature that's difficult to shift, isn't it? But
well, yeah, but it's not even, you know, we shouldn't even be trying to shift it, because we are human and we are here to have a human experience and to have those feelings. And, you know, if the criticism comes in, then it's showing you where you've a wound to heal. So, you know, it's important to feel it and not try and rise above it or get away from it. It's valid. You know, our human material experience is valid.
Of course. And that is a nice, you know, that links us on to the work on triggers, of course, if criticism triggers you. And of course, I always, I talk a lot about understanding triggers, and I will put a link in the description and the video in the end screen on understanding triggers. And it was Liz that that taught me all about that. And that, I think, and I will get you to talk about it as well, but for me personally, it's one of the most powerful healing modalities. I want to call it a healing modality. And it's a self-healing modality. It's one that you don't need to pay anybody else for. It's one that comes up all the time. And it's about, you know, observing, and I'll let Liz talk about it in a bit more detail, because as I say, she's the one that taught me. But it is
self-medicine. Self-medicine. Yeah. Because, you know, what comes up to be healed only comes up when you're ready to heal it. So you have the strength and capacity to actually heal the wound, or feel it at least, when you're ready. So it is exactly the right medicine that you need at the right time. And unfortunately, most of us don't realize that it's just a trigger, and that it's a button and it's our button, and it's within our power to heal it. But then most of humanity don't realize that, or even our bodies are within our, you know, our power to heal also. We hand out our power to others all the time, as we hand the power of somebody who criticizes us. You know, we hand over our power to them, and say they have hurt us, instead of saying, thank you for that reminder that I have this wound that I can now heal.
And that links, well, that is all connected to the there is only you. Because when you understand there is only you, you are the creator of your own creation, then you realize that that didn't trigger you, you created that. And why did you create it? You created it because whatever it was that triggered you, it could be a situation or a person, but whatever it was is a vibrational match to something within you. And that's how you created it, by resonance. And so there is only you. So people always think they made me feel like that, and now the world has gone crazy on being offended by everything, and yet you created everything. You're the creator of it all. So why are you offending yourself? You're not offending yourself. You're raising your awareness to trapped emotions within you that want your attention, and it has nothing to do with anybody or anything on the outside of you. You created that outside situation and experience for the purpose of being able to work on it. To me, that's a really big shift, that when you can work on that, and it doesn't happen overnight, of course, but as I said, I think it took 2 years for you to keep working with me on that
No,
one.
but I was learning at the same time. You know, obviously you were coming to me with that issue so that I could explain it to myself.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So yeah, but once, you know, once that penny dropped, you know, it was kind of went into the slot and it was kind of getting stuck all the way down. But once it dropped, it was like so freeing. It just, it makes life more fun because, you know, you're not afraid of being offended. You're not afraid of being hurt. You're kind of welcoming it a little bit. It's like the statement number 6 in the Byron Katie worksheet. You know, it's like, I welcome this adversity, you know, so that I can practice my learning. I can practice what I've learned. Not that I go around welcoming, you know, punches or or anything like that, or being hurt, but it doesn't happen so much anymore because now I understand. It's like as soon as you start to understand that you're creating the situation, the situations stop being so strong and hurtful, and it becomes much more manageable.
Yeah.
There was something there was something linking my thoughts there to story as well. You know, it's like the narrative that we run. I think I'm kind of going back now a little bit to what we tell ourselves to stop ourselves from being all that we can be. You know, all the doubts, instead of just following our intuition, our ego goes, you know, well, you're not really good enough, or maybe you don't know enough yet. Maybe you need to do this, that, or the other instead. Or it could be even harder and say you're stupid and you're ugly and you're, you know, you can be all of those, anything on that scale. But that it's just all your ego telling you a story to prevent you from actually freeing yourself from the limits that we put on ourselves. And anything that limits us is story. It's not true. Anything, because we are limitless, really. I mean, there's always a ceiling, but the ceiling keeps moving as we expand. The ceiling keeps moving higher, and so because if life was totally unlimited, it would be too much to handle. It would be too intimidating. Where do you start? But you know, it's like having, you know, an allotment that's like, you know, 50 trillion acres, or just a little terrace that you know, or a little flower bed. I can start there. I can do the flower bed, you know, and you move forward, and your fences move farther and farther away as you grow in your abilities.
Definitely, and I think we have no idea. I think our human minds cannot fathom just how far our fences can go, because I think the fence is limiting it, and there is no limits, and it's just this constant, you know, moving and moving, and then you're realizing, yeah, back to that oneness.
But I think it's, yeah, but like I said, it's like if there were no fences, it's like
You wouldn't feel safe.
You wouldn't feel safe. As soon as you put a fence in, you know, you feel safe. But you can always move the fence. It's remembering you can always move the fence, move the fence, or to put a gate in it, or climb over it, or something. You know, just use the fence to feel safe, and then push a little bit.
Yeah, because it is a limit, a limiting belief, perhaps, an ego Yeah, but then the ego's job is to keep us safe. So this is a perfect example of how we want it there. And there was an example, I think we saw the same video where they mentioned it, where they said there was a school playground and they took the fences away and the children all hung around the teacher because they didn't feel safe to go and play. But when the fences were up, they felt very safe to go right up to that. So yeah, that's an interesting point. But it's interesting also to see how far we can push our fences. I think that's but and you did touch on Byron Katie there, so and that's, I have to say that I'll put a link in the description as well, and I can put one of her videos in the end screen, because I found her work, the work she calls it, thework.com. I found that so powerful, just watching her videos, and then of course we did that day retreat and what have you, and I mean I won't forget it, where I was watching you doing your own thing but inspired by Byron Katie's The Work, with another friend of ours, and I was just observing, and I experienced a massive realization and shift. So we can experience those shifts just through observing and watching, and other people, but also we have done that many times with each other, haven't we? We've done Byron Katie, we went through a stage of doing a lot of Byron Katie with each other, and using her
worksheet.
Yes, I'm just trying to remember what it's called. Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, or what have you.
I think she's changed the name now, but yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, so that's powerful. So because I've experienced so much healing, I want to say, through working with you in that way, I wanted to ask you, can you say a few words about the Byron Katie work, how it's helped you and how it's inspired you and your work?
Well, again, it was that realization that I was creating stories that were making me suffer and causing me stress. And it's that the stories are never true. If anything causes you stress, I think that was the biggest thing. It's like I had to actually, really, really think about this, because when you hear it the first time, you go, that can't possibly be true. But anything that causes you stress or causes you to close down is not true.
Or contraction. I want to use the word contraction there.
Yeah. Did I not say that? Anyway.
Close down. No, close down. Yeah.
Close down. Sorry. Yeah. Contract. Yeah. Anything that causes you to contract is simply not true. It's a story that your ego is making up, and it is not true. The only truth is expansive. And I can tell you that till the cows come home, but until you actually kind of do the work on it, you won't see it. And the more you do the work, as Katie calls it, the more you see that that's true, And it's not a logical thing that you can work out with your mind. It is just something that you feel in your heart. And this is why doing the worksheet is a meditation. It's not an exercise of writing down statements and answering questions and, knowing answers. It is about feeling your way through it. And when you will feel the contraction. And when you feel that release and expansion, you just know it's true. You just know it is. And that's just a knowing that nobody can explain really until you feel it.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely. I've used it myself, obviously, with a few clients, and I share it on my online course, and it is just lovely to see. I mean, I've experienced it, of course, but it's lovely to see when people literally have that aha moment we're back to that aha moment. It's that, oh my God, you know, and the realization that that they actually were hanging on to something that they didn't need to hang on to. Yeah.
No, causing our own suffering, you know, that we cause all of our own suffering through believing these stories that we are telling ourselves, because we have so much invested in that position or that opinion or that idea or that thought or that belief of who and what we stand for. And all of a sudden, when you take that rug out,
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, I just now I see that actually it's that thing about you know, I'm not what you think I am, you are what you think I am, and you are not what I think you are, I am what I think you are. And it's you know, that's it. If everybody could see that, there would be no more wars, there would be no more trouble, you know.
Well, there'd be no more blaming, because there is only us.
There'd be no more blaming, and everybody be just doing their own work, you know. Yeah, no more blaming, no more being victim either, though. When you know, if you've got somebody to blame, then you're a victim of them.
Exactly. I love the way you said pull out the rug, because that is how it feels, isn't it? When you have that kind of, you know, it's amazing. And I also love what you said about, you know, the expansion being true and the contraction just being a lie, because as you know, I'm a big fan of the sway test, and anybody that watches my channel knows that as well. But there is a connection here, of course, because, you know, the expansion, when we sway test, if you go forward, that is the truth, you know, and when we go backwards, that is the lie, because we're using it for a yes and for a no. And yet also it's the expansion that makes you go forward and the contraction that makes you go back. So I just wanted to say that, because I know a lot of people that on my channel you know, using this sway test and everything. So there's just a, you know, a repeat there, but the expansion is the truth, like Liz says, and it's the contraction that is the lie. So yeah, wow, amazing. So yes, the lovely Byron Katie and her work, so powerful, when you realize that you are the creator of it all. And not only that, but your creative power lies, our creative power lies in our ability to choose our beliefs. So if you have a belief that doesn't feel good, you have the ability to choose another one, because you are the creator. And you get to choose what you create.
And there is only you. So,
and there is only you.
To explain it to. You've nobody to have to talk it through, or apologize to. There is only you. So I had that belief yesterday, and I have this one today. And this is how I'm going to carry on.
And don't take yourself too seriously, and allow yourself to backtrack on beliefs. That's a really important one as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because our opinions keep changing. I mean, gosh, you know, just, the last 2 years are obvious example of having to change tack and change ideas and change beliefs.
Yeah, and how the change that we're all seeking in the outside world, a lot of people are now understanding how that change starts with us, and it starts within, and that if you want to change something on the outside of you, you start by changing what's on the inside of you.
Yeah, and that brings me on to the Kybalion, which we played a chapter of on Tuesday, and this idea, because a friend sent me a message yesterday just saying, you know, he's very confused about who's right and who's wrong in this war that's going on in the world, and you know, he doesn't know what to think, and how do we, it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong, but how do we fix it? How do we improve it? How do we stop the suffering? And you know, it goes back to the principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, and as without, so within. You know, we can never have peace in the world until we have peace inside of us, inside of ourselves. That's one thing. But the other was the principle of polarity, and that every thought, you know, has an equal and opposite thought that is the same. It's on the, I describe it as a guitar string. It's, you know, but in the Kybalion, they explain it in terms of heat, temperature, and I think it's a really nice example that, you know, heat and cold are just different expressions of the same thing, which is temperature. And where does heat begin and cold end? You know, where does cold end and heat begin? Well, it's the same thing. But you know what I mean. If you look at a thermometer, you're not going to see, you know, okay, you might see 0 degrees or something like that, but actually, if you're living it, you don't see. It's just it's getting cooler or it's getting warmer, but there's no definitive line that divides the two. So they're both the same. Heat and cold are the exact same thing. And so how do we resolve that paradox of heat and cold? Well, it's first of all understanding that they're the same thing. That's the first step to resolving it, is understanding it's the same thing. And then it's choosing where you want to be. So I want to be at, you know, 21 degrees Celsius, or I want to be at 24 degrees Celsius, or whatever. That's where I want to be. I put my focus, and I keep my, I bring my frequency to that degree, and I hold it there. And so that's what I create in my reality. So in terms of war and peace, you know, I choose a place of harmony and peace. I choose that frequency. That rate of vibration. Yeah, I choose that vibration. Sorry, I'm mixing my metaphors here. I choose the vibration of harmony and hold that. And what does that mean to me? And how would the world look if we were all able to live in harmony and peace and equality and justice and, you know, yeah, all of that in just love? How would that world be? How would that world look? How would it feel, more so even? How would that frequency feel in my body? How would that just be in me? How would I be in that? How would I act? How would I treat others? How would I treat myself? What would I be doing? And just live on that frequency as best you can. And the world, you know, the world just, everything just has to fall into alignment with that, you know, just has to. Maybe only for me, or maybe for me and the people that I have in my energy field that I'm treating in that equal, harmonious, peaceful, non-judgmental way. And then them and their circles and their circles, and eventually the whole world gets to feel that and live that. Sorry, went off on one.
It was perfect. And you know what's even more perfect about it is it has actually answered the last 2 questions. But yes, definitely, and it's so lovely to hear you say it like that, because I think it's really important that we hear these things from different people in different ways, because that way we can really grasp it. Because you know, when I try and explain that, I use different words, and so it's, yeah, it's perfect. I love that. Living it from the inside out, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the next question was, and you might be able to expand on this, but I think you've already given a very beautiful example of this. But if you remember on Tuesday, one of my feedback in the group was it wasn't a bad afternoon's work, and then I put the word inner in brackets. It wasn't a bad, you know, afternoon's inner work. So we talk about this inner work. We've talked about Byron Katie's The Work, and really the path of evolution, or the path to peace, I want to say, the path to peace is one of inner work. And anyone watching on my channel knows, is in the process of doing their inner work, and obviously understand that. So my question is, what is your interpretation of the phrase inner work? Because I think it does mean different things to different people. Obviously, I talk a lot about, you know, certain modalities, shall we say, and different techniques, different perceptions. There's all sorts of different things that can be the inner work. So what is your interpretation of the inner work, and how would you advise anybody watching to continue and to expand into more inner work?
Okay. I guess the inner work really starts with when you notice the buttons, your buttons are being pushed. For me, that's where it started for me. And getting to know myself, my real self, the inner self, through seeing how others saw me, because others are the mirrors and they show us the bits at the back that we can't see, our shadows. And yeah, being prepared to listen to criticism, from not just troll criticism, but, you know, in a safe environment of, it's not criticism, but honest reflection, I guess. Honest reflection, being open to hear it and feel it, and accept that, you know, it may be true, even if it isn't true. Accept that whatever someone says to you, you know, in honest feedback, may be true. It may be their wound that they're projecting onto you. That's true. But if it pushes your button, it's got to be for you too. It's got to be a message there for you to heal. If not, they can project anything they want onto you, and it'll just go off, you know, run off like water off a duck's back. It's when it pushes your button, and when you feel hurt or offended or whatever, then there's work there to be done, and be prepared to shift away from blame and victim to, oh, this is something I can work on. This is something I can heal in myself. And as soon as you say that, you know, pretty much it's healed. It's like, you know, it just happens. And the
That's
more
the
you do
power
it,
of will. That's the power of willingness, isn't it?
the power of willingness. Be willing. Yeah, I am willing to be hurt. I am willing to be offended. I am willing to have shitty experiences. You know,
Willing to feel vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Vulnerability. So I mean, that can be a very fast process, or it can be a very slow process. For me, you know, I was very lucky to find a group, and my mentor, I'm going to call you Guillemar, who really just kept lovingly shoving it in my face, you know. Yeah, but Liz, you're just being a victim. Yeah, but Liz, you're going, daddy, 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 help me. Daddy, 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 I can't do it. You know, somebody else do it for me. And yeah, eventually I woke up. Yeah. So find yourself somebody who can, you know, lovingly show you the mirror, the bits that you can't see or don't want to see. Be willing to see them. Be willing to see them.
Well, when you're willing to see them, the right teacher will come along, and the teacher may not be an official mentor, so to speak, because we know, don't we?
Or a parent, or
we know that our spouses, our children, our animals, they are all our teachers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, sometimes it isn't done so lovingly. Sometimes it is done really freaking hard. You know, sometimes it can be tough, but
as long as you know there is only you, and if you have that emotion within you, because this came up, I think, last week, and actually I think it was last Sunday's video, that it cannot exist outside of you if it doesn't first exist within you. And so it doesn't matter on what's triggered you. It could be social media. It could be what's going on in the world. It doesn't really matter. The point is, when you feel that negative emotion rise up within you, then you have to take responsibility. That's your emotion. There is no one else. So even though something outside of you has drawn your attention to it, we are so tempted to blame what's on the outside. But if you can start giving gratitude to what's on the outside because it's raised your awareness, and as Liz said earlier on, once you've worked on those triggers, what's on the outside of you will no longer trigger you. So it's not, there's two things that go on here. One is that whatever was triggering you will no longer be there because it's not a vibrational match. That emotion isn't within you anymore, so therefore that trigger cannot exist. But when you're looking at it on a world stage, maybe you can observe that same thing, but as Liz says, it won't trigger you, it won't push your buttons. So you can actually observe what's going on in the world, open your heart to love and compassion for all that is, but not actually be triggered by it anymore. And that's, of course, the path to peace.
Yes, totally. And something I heard Byron Katie say, I just watched a video the other day, don't suffer someone else's suffering.
Yeah.
You know, when we can have compassion and love for people who are suffering.
Yeah.
But by bringing ourselves down and making ourselves suffer is not going to lift them out of their suffering. You know, so it really is about raising our own vibration, realizing with gratitude, you know, that we are not suffering to that same degree, at least at this moment. That doesn't mean that you mightn't be suffering at some other point, but you know, in this moment, right here, right now, you can feel compassion and love for someone who is suffering, but don't try and get yourself down there or make yourself feel bad about the fact that you're not suffering to the same degree.
Well, no, because you're not in that low frequency, but you will be in a place of love and compassion. You're providing that space of love and compassion for them to raise their frequency out of that space. It's like a little child who's fallen over and hurt their knee. You know, you're not going to start, you know, visualizing your own knee hurt, but you will open your arms and have love and compassion for that child while they have a little cry, right? So, but having that love and compassion is what's going to keep you in that expanded state. That's what's going to take you to the state of peace, isn't it? Rather than taking on their suffering. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, because there is only you. That person that you see suffering is, you know, a cell in your body. It's a reflection of a part of you that is suffering. So yes, feel love and compassion for it. Have a few tears if that's what you need, but then, you know, allow it to heal, I guess.
That's an interesting point, because we hear a lot about empaths. People talk a lot about, I take on the emotions of others. So that's an interesting point, really, isn't it? Because if there is no one else, whose emotions are you taking on? So perhaps a little note to the empaths out there, that when you feel like you're being empathic, then that's actually, the emotion is within you still.
Yes.
Coming up for your attention and for your love and for your compassion, not for your wallowing, but for your love and for your compassion, so that you can understand what's going on. And it can be overwhelming, and it happens to us sensitive souls. You know, I remember taking on the, you know, feeling like I was taking on the emotions of people outside of me. But when you understand that there is only you, that actually isn't possible. What's happening is you are opening up to more of who you are, and these emotions are coming up. And your friend Guillermo that we just talked about, I remember her quote, of course, is that when the light comes in, the shit has to go. and that's what's happening. That's why when you're an empath, you feel all these emotions, because you're opening up to more of who you are. That's the light coming in, and these emotions that want to be processed is the shit leaving. So that's an interesting point for empaths, I think, as well.
Yeah, and it's also interesting when I hear people saying, oh, I you know, do protection spells, and I carry this to protect myself, and I have to keep the evil out. Like I've never done that. I mean, I have cleared my energy with sage and stuff like that, for sure. And it's not that dark energies don't exist, but they're within me. They're mine. You know, if they're bothering me, they're mine. There's something in me resonating. Otherwise, it would just flow through, right?
Yeah. It can only come into your field if it's resonating with a part of you. But then that's what this is all about. Getting rid of our own lower frequencies, no?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that everything, it's like virus as well. I'm really getting controversial now, but everything is in the air around us. It's passing through us. We are not solid. There is nothing solid. Everything is here and now and everywhere. It only sticks if it's a vibrational match. So so it doesn't matter whether it's a virus or a bacteria or some sort of pathogen, or whether it's an energy, but they're all only energy anyway. So it won't stick unless you've got the matching vibration for it. And so what I've, you know, I've different tools for when I am a vibrational match for something that's uncomfortable. Well, I've had many different tools over the years, but my most recent one is from Paul Selig, which is I am word. I am word through this discomfort. Word, I am word. I am word through this pain. I am word through this emotion. I am word. Word, I am word. And that lifts the vibration to the word. And the word is basically our Christ energy, our Christ energy. And we can get into alignment with that. And okay, I'm going to go off on another little tangent now, but it's like royal rife, the rife frequencies, you know, or homeopathy. It's you find the frequency of the thing, of anything, and you bring in an equal frequency to it, and it dissolves it. It balances it out. And so, yeah, you just match the frequency, and then it dissolves away. So, although with bringing in the Christ energy, you're really just raising everything up so that any density falls away.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Which
Do you want to say that no more?
No, I mean that's me is the be all and end all. It's raising your frequency. It's why raising your frequency is I've been recently finding myself saying raising your frequency is your ticket out of this madness. But raising your frequency is everything. That's how we're going to expand into more of who we are and expand our level of consciousness. It is about raising your frequency. And I think we can kind of conclude that it's, yeah, raising your frequency, but also self-awareness. I think what we've been talking about today has really brought home the importance of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Being aware of who you are, what you're feeling, where you're feeling it, what you can do about it. I mean, there's so many more things that we can talk about, but we've been going on for quite a while. So we could do another one. It's not a problem, because I did want to talk about, you know, soul level stuff as well, and the path to forgiveness, but we can do that in another video. And the very last question I had, which you have actually touched on, I think already, was, you know, we're kind of raising our frequency to create or to tap into heaven on earth. Heaven on earth, of course, being a level of consciousness that already exists, but we need to raise our frequency, like you say, to match it. But we all have our own vision of what heaven on earth is. And you were talking about maintaining and creating that frequency, that feeling of peace, harmony, joy, abundance, which to me is heaven on earth. But just to end with, what is your vision of heaven on earth, the heaven on earth that Liz Nagle is creating, or has created, I should say, maybe?
Yeah, well, it mostly, I may not look at from other people's perspective, but you know, my life is really, really good. I'm really happy. I want for nothing. Okay, so my vision for the world, it's obviously not perfect, because otherwise we wouldn't have war, you know, in the world. But I don't have war in my life. I don't have war.
Because it's not within you. That was one of my videos. The conflict is within you. So you're not experiencing any war or being triggered because there's no conflict within you. That's a powerful. Yeah.
So yeah, so my vision is for, just peace, equality, justice, harmony. Just, you know, looking out my window and seeing everybody kind of getting on with their lives. It's not that they're, well, yeah, getting on with their lives with a smile on their face, you know, and children running around squealing with joy, and, you know, playing chasing and having fun, and yeah, and animals being free, you know. have this other friend who's trying to train his puppy to walk on a lead, and I'm thinking, the poor old puppy, all he wants to do is run and have fun. And, you know, poor old dogs are getting an awful, we shouldn't have so many pets, maybe, you know, she says with her cat sitting on her knee. But, you know, the dog just wants to run and have fun and explore and, yeah, chase cats and chase birds and, you know, cause havoc here and there. But
that's my dog.
That's dog's nature. And I'm not saying we should let them, you know, disturb other things.
Freedom, though. Your point is freedom. Yeah,
it's freedom, but this is the thing, is when we're trying to control our lives or our puppies, or, you know, we're trying to control something, we cause our own suffering.
Yeah.
You know, because it should be this, he should walk on the lead, he should be well behaved, he should do this, and he's not, and therefore, you know, I'm failing, or
you're not you're not loving what is.
You're not loving what is. You're not loving what is. And that's not to say that, you know, it wouldn't be a good idea to train the puppy to walk, but at least give him enough time running free as well, you know. Yeah, I guess. Anyway.
Okay. And heaven on earth, I think, I was thinking, when I think of you in heaven on earth, I think of you painting your pictures with your precious cat with you, but then the front door open with all the neighborhood cats outside.
Hello.
Well, thank you so much, Liz Nagle, energy alchemist and mentor. Oh, I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad we did this. Is there anything you want to say or share before we say goodbye, before we stop the recording?
I just want to say something quick about the satsang, because when you mentioned it in the beginning, I thought, oh shit, you know, I'm setting myself up as somebody who runs a satsang, and who am I to do that? And
is that a limiting belief?
Yeah, story, you know. But the satsang, sat is truth, and the sang is the coming together of like-minded people to discuss it and sit in it, really. And that word came to me before I even knew what it meant. So that's a word I was given, and I was told to do. When I say I was told to do it, I didn't hear a voice in my head. It's just the word came, the impulse. It's the impulse to do it. Yeah.
And you know that if you don't follow that impulse, you're going to be very uncomfortable.
I'm going to be uncomfortable, or I'm going to be lost for a bit until another impulse comes in, you know. So it's like, take this impulse or get a kick in your ass later down the line to do something that's much harder.
But I think what's so lovely is that and I think anyone watching this will relate to this, because as we're all evolving, and as we evolve, you know, what we resonate with changes, and the activities that we want to do changes, and so the only way we can know what direction to go in is to what's inspiring us, like wanting to do this with you today, and you and your satsang and everything, but also what brings us joy, because that's what I've been looking at. I've been looking at all the things I do, because we all, you know, do a lot of different things, you know, I mean, not just work related, of course, all the abundance activities, and really reflecting on what brings me the most joy. And I'm stopping doing a lot of the things that I actually had identified with, you know, like an energy healer and stuff. You know, I'm actually stopping a lot of that stuff because it's just not bringing me joy anymore, and focusing on what is bringing me joy. And that's, I think, you know, I've got to practice what I preach, right? And so what's so beautiful with you, because you and I obviously have these conversations, we can feel like we're being guided somewhere, but we don't really know where to. And we're like the fool, aren't we? The fool card, about like, I don't know where this is going. And we've often talked about, you know, how we can serve, and the best way we can serve, and we don't really know how can we use our strengths and our gifts, and we don't know, do we, where it's kind of taking us. We have these ideas, but I think what's really beautiful, what I'm really pleased about, and I'm feeling quite emotional about this, is because the vision, and this isn't for me to talk about now, but the vision that I have for myself is really coming together, which is making me excited. But what I love is that this vision for you, and I'm sure it's just one of many things that you offer. I know it's one of many things that you offer, but it just seems so right. I just wanted to say that I know the inspiration came to you, and I'm sure you don't need me to say that, but and I think for anyone attending, if you set your intention, you're willing and you're open and you're ready, then you will achieve some form of inner work from the experience, purely because that's the way you have chosen to create it. That's the way the universe works. It works in our benefit. It works to our favor. So and I can see this because we've had many conversations about what to do with all these gifts, that we're expanding into and stuff, and I think this is perfect and beautiful, and basically it serves me, so thank you.
And me. Thank you.
And that's all that matters, because there is only me. Okay, so if that's all for now, let's just say love and blessings to anyone watching, and love and blessings to you, Liz, even if nobody watches this at all. I've had a fantastic time, and I love you, and so look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.